Welcome back to the Perfect Lab Podcast. I'm Mark Jager. He's Mark Kilgore. He goes by Kilgore. I go by Jager. Today we are here with Kevin Fennell and Callan Spence. Kevin here is from FastX Autosports in San Marcos, Texas, and Callan is the driver of number 34, the Lotus Elise, in limited class at Super Lap Battle that for a brief time, held that limited class record till it got ripped away from him. I'm betting he was trying to hold on to that puppy as hard as he possibly could, but he couldn't just do it. But let's talk to Callan and Kevin. All right, Callan, you're up first, buddy. So let's talk about it, man. You guys came out of nowhere. Like, I started seeing bits and pieces, and I'm not going to lie. I saw bits and pieces of Kevin talking about this car and I saw all his little like 5 and 10 minute videos on YouTube kind of talking about how he's excited. He saw Time Attack, and then all of a sudden it's like, I got to get out there and try this thing. And I'll give Kevin a little bit of, I don't know if this is credit or not credit, but he had a little bit of that arrogance to him of, I think we can go out and whip these fools. And so it was awesome to see the confidence that he had going into it, and more importantly, the confidence that he had in his driver. So let's find out a little bit about Callan Spence and see what's going on, man. How did you get into racing? How'd you get into Time Attack? What's going on?
Well, I got into racing after being diagnosed with cancer. I was originally like a top 10 in my division mountain biker, and then I got cancer, lost all my endurance and athletic ability, and had the opportunity to go out to a track for basically just a regular HPED day, and the addiction started, where it got really out of hand, where me and my dad started with just a C8 Corvette, doing some HPD days, nothing too casual, and then Spec Miata. So we got into NASA and did some Spec Miata and NASA SCCA for about 1.5 years, realized that bullpen is really challenging, and it made me a great driver, but it's a tough field out there. It's really fun,
the Spec Miata world is tough. I know a lot of friends that have been involved with it. Spec series of any kind, I mean, as you guys well know, racing at the end of the day, it's all about finding those gray areas. People always say, oh, get into Spec Miata, it's super cheap. Bullshit.
Yeah.
and
if the engine builders don't like you, then you can't win. Like it's just a cut and dry thing. It was just silly, but
we realize our
it's easy
competitors.
to get into the sport, right? It's cheap to get in. It's expensive to win, right? And that is even for Time Attack, also all forms of racing, right? The scope just continues to creep for sure.
So you did Spec Miata. How was your car? I'm just asking, like, was your car like a pretty good car, or was it like a pretty not so good car and you just had to drive the crap out of it?
It was a mix of both. It felt like it changed during the day. It was built from Bill Aga. He won it before, won NASA, the overall. And there's definitely a lot of quirks with that car. I think my best finish was 4th, just outside the podium in the rain, which was helpful.
I mean, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I mean, usually those fields are pretty stacked.
Yeah.
They do have amazing drivers,
Yes.
awesome cars. So that's pretty impressive in itself.
Yeah. I felt like I got what I wanted out of it. So we kind of transitioned to doing more endurance racing type things. And we had a Lotus that we bought on hand that we were just kind of sitting doing a lot of HPD days. And we went out to Super Lap Battle to like go watch Kevin support I think a Nissan GTR, if I remember correctly.
Uh-huh.
And we went out there and we're like, we have to come here with the car. This is just amazing. The environment, like the spectacle of it, and the cars there were just like unicorns. It's just so just amazing to look at. And yeah.
Some may even say that it's the pinnacle Time Attack event in the U.S. Some may say, others will always point to Button Willow. I don't know why. I'm so tired of hearing of it, but whatever.
We're gonna get you out there, Kilgore, and you're gonna have to try it out and tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Is there going to be thousands
But,
of fans at Button Willow though? That's a big selling point for Super Lap Battle.
There are thousands of cows. There are cows out there, so I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's interesting. So I have to ask: is this the same Lotus that you guys had and you were HPDing?
Yes, because same chassis. Same. Kevin? What are the parts that
What's
stayed
left
on
of
the
it?
car?
So the steering rack, the steering column, the frame, the doors, but they're gutted, and the front column. Or the front clamp,
That's the
sorry.
same
The front
car.
clamp.
That's
Yeah.
the same car.
Some of this, like the side body panels and stuff.
I mean,
which it would
the
be-
rockers are part of the chassis on that, so we can't count them.
So,
So-
I'm sure. I mean, we'll get into it, but I guess neither me nor Jaeger are Lotus connoisseurs. So, what sort of like frame is a Lotus? What's underneath the skin? So when you're talking about what's left of it, like what's it made of?
So it's an aluminum box. So you've got it's very similar to like the way a McLaren is, where you've got the two carbon fiber tubes down the side of the car underneath the doors, and then all the strength comes from them. But instead of being carbon, they're aluminum, and they're actually glued together. So the whole car is aluminum extrusions glued together, and it's like amazing how stiff of a car that results in, how much room you have inside the car for how little it is, and everyone, whenever I talk about racing these cars, they're like, oh, the glue's going to fail. Oh, it's going to get weak or anything. But, my car has 20,000 track miles on it, maybe, with slicks, and not a single issue with anything breaking that way. So it's an interesting car.
So that brings up an interesting question. So Callan had a car. He had a Lotus. They were tracking it. So how did Callan ended up with Kevin? How did that relationship kind of come to fruition?
So we met each other basically at our first, my first HPD day. He wasn't coaching me. I was getting coached by a family friend of mine. And we met Kevin, and we immediately set up another day at Harrisville for HPD. Rented out some cars, brought the Corvette, and based off his easy access to Harrisville, which is our local club track, it was just an easy choice to.
So what you're saying is you met Kevin for the first time and you have yet to be able to shake him off your tail, and he's just been attached ever since. Got
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. That's the main point.
And so at the end of the day, so now you have this Lotus, you're doing HPD day stuff with it. What was that? So you said that Super Lap Battle was probably, I'm assuming, was your flinch point? Like that was the point that said, I'm gonna build this Lotus.
Oh, 100%. Kevin's been a little I don't know, devil on our shoulder, oh yeah, you should build a really fast car. You should build a really fast car. And me and my dad are we're not sure if we want to have one of our cars break all the time or something like that. And then we went to Super Lap Battle, and all that went out the window, all that reason and practicality.
As it does, yes.
So I'll ask you, Kevin. So when Callan finally came to you and said, okay, I've been doing this HPD stuff, I see what you're doing with your Lotus. How can we get my Lotus to that next level? When you said, okay, Super Lap Battle was awesome. Did you already have a Lotus plan in your head for superiority? Or was that something that you had to go and dive in and figure out?
No, I was fairly confident that was going to be, the result that we would get, that we'd be able to go sub 12 in a Lotus. So, I've got a car that is fairly similar chassis, cage, suspension wise to this car, but only 250 horsepower. And that car is already a 16-17 car at Coda. And so, it seemed reasonable that adding the power, adding a little bit of engineering to the traction control and sensor systems would kind of get us there. But we actually did go right to Lotus. We basically we started with, okay, so we want to go to limited class and we want to be able to try to win. So what can we do to go 212? And we talked about three different things actually. One was that we used our C8, but we were worried that controlling the transmission was going to be too much of a wormhole. at that power level. Like we knew that Motec was working for the engine at that time when we were planning, but not for the transmission, and we weren't really sure if that was going to be something that could be solved even if we tried. So then we talked about Lotus. We talked about AMG GTs because I still think that might be the secret weapon for winning limited class.
Really?
Yeah, they make so much power without doing anything to them, right? And you can buy all the AMG GT4 parts for them and bolt them right on.
That's a very interesting take, because let me tell you that limited class, as you guys well understand this, it just seems like a situation where guys are saying, well, the answer's got to be Corvette, the answer's got to be Corvette. Like it's just tending, and that's even an unlimited too. I mean, these guys are just naturally gravitating to that Corvette because they think it's going to be the easiest. So that's interesting. You have a couple of different options in Flair. I like that actually, because one of the things that I love to see, like I loved seeing you guys come out with a Lotus because it's different. I want to see different cars out there. I just don't want to see. I don't want to see Corvette Challenge. I want to see Evos,
No, please
Subarus.
no.
You know,
Nor
BMWs.
Supras, Supra Challenge. I mean,
Holy, the Supras.
even
Yeah.
as a BMW guy, like I loved seeing all the M4s come out this year. Like they were all over the place. But even then, like you look at them, they're all kind of the same. It's the same for the Supras, even the same for the Corvettes. Like it's just the same recipe, right? Like it's just a different flair. So it kind of gets a little boring. I totally agree, Jaeger. It was really cool seeing the Lotus, something different, come out there and be competitive. Clearly it was.
Here at the Perfect Lab Podcast, we're happy to introduce Whoosh Bespoke Wheels as a sponsor of the show. Whoosh Bespoke was born out of necessity. Their race team struggled to find wheels that offered the perfect fit, strength, durability, and that big old thing, a reasonable price. The people behind Whoosh Bespoke are racers and engineers seeking engineering excellence, and they offer precision forged wheels crafted by racers for racers, with a product lineup that includes a wide range of options from monoblock to modular wheels, including 2- and 3-piece wheel designs. All engineered from the finest materials, although they do primarily use 6061 T6 forged aluminum, but they do offer things as high of quality as a magnesium alloy. So this really can work for any setup you're trying to go for. Customization is at the heart of what they do at Whoosh Bespoke. You can tailor your wheels with custom sizes, offsets, finishes, and even options like custom lettering, adding two-tones. Their colors include both standard and premium finishes, as well as special finishes like brushed, hand-polished, and even paint to sample. Every set of wheels produced exceeds the JWL standards and meets the rigorous WCEC quality standards, and they are tested by real people with real cars racing all around the world. And guess what? Me and Kilgore, we're also going to be part of that team. So we're going to be putting these things to the test. We're putting them on our cars. Kilgore's going to be repping out and going through all the time attack season. I'm going to be beating them up at HPDE days and just having a good time with them. So I want you to go take a look at them and make sure you give them a follow on all their socials. It's whooshautomotive.com, Whoosh Automotive on all the socials. Go check them out. So give us a little bit of rundown, Kevin. Like, tell us, people want to know the specs. Obviously, it was touted throughout the entire weekend. Over 1,000 horsepower Lotus, but tell us how you got to that. Because reality is, I think even at one juncture, the announcers thought that you had a V8 in the car. So I want our listeners to understand what's got this car being able to do what it can do.
Okay, so the powertrain on that car is a fully built 2GR. It's sleeved, it's closed deck, it's O-ringed. It's got cams from the Lotus GT4 program. It's
Is that a natural engine from the Lotus, or did that come from something else? Or is it in multiple cars?
Yeah, so that engine's in Toyota Sienna minivans with the tow package is the main,
oh yeah,
the main
clearly
place you find them.
Yeah, clear. Yeah, Oh yeah,
It is.
yeah.
So the engine in that car literally came from a Toyota Sienna minivan.
Nice.
Plentiful and cheap, I'm sure.
Yeah. So $1,200 for the core, and then 20 times that to build it into a race car. But um, we ended up running. I think we were making like 27-ish pounds of boost on Sunday morning on the second session, and we revved it to 7,800 RPM. A couple times on the back straight. So what we did on the second session Sunday to try to go faster is we turned the rev limiter off and just told Callan just shift at 7,500 until he gets on the back straight, and then just stay flat in seventh gear until it's time to brake. So
sorry, I'm gonna jump in here again. This is just wild to me. So like, who was the first one to be like, I'm gonna take this minivan engine and turn it into something crazy? Like, was that a known quantity that you already knew about, or did you engineer this thing from scratch?
Yeah, so these engines were used in they're in the Lotus Evora, right? So Cosworth did a bunch
Okay.
of development work for Lotus in the GT4 program. And so some of the parts on this engine and some of the things in this engine are from that. We had an engine builder that I don't want to give any kind of notoriety to build the engine for us because they said it would be able to make 1,000 wheel horsepower for a Lapakota. And basically we chose this engine because three things. One, it could make that much power for a whole lap. Two, a dry sump existed. And three, a sequential existed. And we did it at the
And four, it would actually fit in the in the chassis.
Yeah, that almost became a problem. So we found all the specs of the sequential transmission that bolts up to this car, but we had to buy the transmission from a shop in Italy, and asked them, "Hey, do we need an adapter plate to put this on a 2GR?" No, you don't need an adapter plate. It gets here, it doesn't bolt up. We have to add another 1-inch adapter plate. And he says, "Oh, well, I meant you didn't need to buy another adapter plate. You already have one with your Lotus."
Oh man.
Yeah.
Something lost in translation with the Italians,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So that wasn't so pleasant. And then they made me arrange shipping with UPS in Italy. I don't know if you've ever tried to like work with international shippers from the US. It's no fun. That was a whole weird deal. So it's got it's the engine. We picked the engine because it had the dry sump, it had the sequential, and it could make the power. Like the other obvious choice is the K24, which is going to be the most commonly swapped engine into the Lotuses. But despite people like Skura saying that they make 1,000 horsepower with their K24, I've yet to find any engine builder in North America that'll be like, "Yep, you can bomb it down the back straight at Coda at 180 miles an hour, 3 or 4 times in a day, and it'll be fine." They're all like, "Yeah, we can make 1,000 for 8 seconds once," kind of thing.
I think that you bring up such an important point, right? There's so many of the drag race guys that can build 1,000 horsepower engine to go 8 seconds, like really to go for a short period of time, full throttle to no throttle. But when you start talking about going around a circuit and having to do a few laps in a session, even, I mean, you're just talking about one, but I'm just trying to allow Callan to go a couple of laps. And it's like to allow that to happen, like you said, I thought that was pretty interesting that the choice, obviously, like one thing. I mean, this is me watching Gears and Gasoline, and those guys been dealing with the Frankenstein Motorsports guy or whatever his name is. And I noticed that your guys is the intake manifold, the runners and stuff like that. I think you guys have that Frankenstein Motorsports guys like runner top thing or whatever.
It's
it is.
Frankenstein Motorworks, but it's a different one, I think, than you guys would be talking about. So those guys make 2GR swap parts for MR2s for the most part.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we've got that Frankenstein adapter plate onto the TIC, like super low profile intercooler that's meant for like drag race Camaros, I guess, or something like that. Yeah, so that Frankenstein plate converts the 2GR intake into the Holley Hiram intake bolt pattern. And then it's just Holley Hiram parts on top of that you could buy anywhere for really quite cheap for what they are. And it worked really, really well. We were seeing IATs of like 128 degrees, 132 degrees at the end of the back straight. At 27 pounds of boost in a closed engine compartment. It's really good, right?
Yeah.
And then you want to guess? So when Callan got to the apex of turn 12 on Sunday morning second session after going 180 on the back straight, what do you think the coolant temperature was at the apex?
Oh, because you're making me
172.
guess, I'm guessing yes. I was gonna say
It was
like
literally
lower than 180.
It was exactly 172. So the,
Yes.
yeah, so the car gets hot on the
That was
straightaway,
a
but
total guess.
it sheds the heat instantly. Like just in the braking zone, it's able to shed down from 205 to 170 that fast.
What fuel are you guys running in that? Is it like MS-109 or an E85 ethanol blend or
Yeah,
something?
so we started on just pump E85, and when I got into the higher boost levels, we started getting a little bit of knock, and then we got trapped between the EGTs and the knock on the timing, and so the only way to move forward a little bit was to switch to X85, and that let us give it another degree of timing. Then brought the EGTs back to, they're still high. Like the EGTs at the end of the back straight are terrifyingly high, but we're not actually like putting any molten aluminum on the spark plugs or anything, so they're just barely okay.
So I'll have to ask you this. So obviously, how long did you spend building this car out?
So like we started officially working on it right before Christmas. No, so I don't think we actually ordered any parts like got back from Christmas, like so the very, very beginning of 2024. And the car turned on like the day before I went on Christmas vacation in 2024. And then from Christmas until the Friday before Super Lap Battle was essentially getting the cams to work and getting the head gaskets to work.
Uh-oh. Did you say head gaskets? I know a little bit about that in
head
the Subaru
gaskets.
world. So I'm just curious because you said that. You're saying that it has propensity to pop a head gasket, or just trying to fit getting the right thing? What's
So
the head gasket thing?
So both of those problems are the engine builder's fault.
Oh.
So the head sealing system that they put on the engine is just well known not to work. It only works to 20 psi, and every high-end TGR builder that I talked about was like, yeah. Oh, you went to 21 on that one? That was pretty good. You know? Oh, you didn't fail it right away? That was a great job, man. So we ended up having to the first time we thought it was our fault. We thought it was a tune problem because there's a giant knock in the data, but that was actually just the cylinder filling with water.
Oh.
And then the second time it happened, we're like, nope, wasn't our fault. The tune was good. There's no EGT. There's no knock. There's nothing. It's like it shouldn't have failed right there. And take it apart, and both head gaskets had failed, actually. Just one of them had failed into the oil passage instead of into water. And so the second time we put it back together, we went with different head studs and basically doubled the clamp load on the head gasket, and then never had another problem after that.
What kind of head studs do you run? Did you go like a larger diameter, or is it just more
larger diameter and age 625 plus.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Again,
Very cool.
the Subaru world teaches you a lot about that. Let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. and so we were really scared when we did that, because as I was trying to figure out what was going on with the head studs, I find out that the 2GR head studs that everyone uses are actually Toyota 2AR head studs. And in that application, which is also a Toyota cast aluminum block, they torqued them to 110 foot-pounds. But in the 2GRs, they only torqued them to 85 foot-pounds. And I'm like, well, what's going to happen if we increase the clamp load on this? Because that's really weird that we're already clamping it so much less when we know these cars have head gasket problems. So we actually got a core block that we had from a Evora that hydrolocked, and brought it to the machine shop, and we had the other one bored out, had them drill a couple holes in it as well, and did some testing to see what we could torque the studs to on the other block. And we got to, I think I went to 150 foot-pounds on the M12 by 1.25 studs. So it's like a 50,000 pound tension or so. And then we did 110 when we put it together on the other block, which was double the clamping load that we used to have. So that worked out.
Were you worried about like block distortion or something like that within the adding that extra clamp load, or what was the big worry there?
The main worry is pulling the threads out. So it's really
Okay.
hard. It's really hard to actually engineer how well you're going to be able to pull on a thread in cast aluminum. For example, like when NASA does that calculation, they put a 3 safety factor in, which is obviously way too much of a safety factor to use in a block because there wasn't that would give us less clamp load than we used to have, right? So that's why we went with the test block to make sure we didn't pull out the threads. And then when we put together the good engine, we put it together with less torque.
Awesome.
Very cool.
So I'll ask a silly question really quick. Kevin, what the heck is your background?
I'm a mechanical engineer, and then I worked in the oil field for 8 years, like out in the field, kind of solving crisis constantly. So it was like go out there, babysit the equipment, make sure. Like I did a lot of like downhole hydraulic stuff. Like, is it safe to do what we're gonna do? Are we gonna have enough pressure from the column of water pushing down to overcome the reservoir pressure? And then the equipment would break, and then we'd have to scramble to fix it with the 3 sticks and duct tape that we had in the supervisor's truck because we're 6 hours from a town that doesn't even have a Walmart. So it's we're on our own. There's nothing you can do unless you can fix what you got. And so that's kind of where I learned all the hustling work.
Got you. Go ahead, Kilgore. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say, before we turn this into a engine episode, in terms of, suspension, tires, what was some of the thought process behind, okay, what size tires are we going to run? Obviously, the car had a wide body kit on it. The back end of that thing, even with the front fenders, the back end was still was still much wider than the front. I mean, it was just crazy. So a little bit of that information in terms of setup from the tire, suspension.
Yeah.
Did you keep the same geometry, adjust the geometry, etc.?
It's essentially like the stock suspension geometry, but with drop spindles. So use the stock
Okay.
pickup points, stock shaped control arms and everything. But the control arms are like T45, which is a European metal grade that I've come to understand is like something like 4340 that we use here. So just like a chromoly control arm. Much different than the OEM Lotus ones, which act as an undamped spring when you go to transition from 2 to 3, which is terrifying. Then Penske 7500 doubles on the shocks, and we had shock pots on it that we had Tim Whitteridge like reviewing our position and making sure that our settings were good during the event, which was really nice. And it turns out that like my butt feel from driving the car for 10 minutes at Harris Hill actually got the shocks like 95% of the way to what he wanted. And then we have tire temperature sensors. So we were able to really nail down the lateral G's versus tire temperature and lateral G's versus tire pressure, which was a game changer. We learned more in 2 laps doing that than in 3 years of driving around trying to use a pyrometer to figure out what pressures and temperatures and camber should be. Like literally, Callan's car makes more G's in the carousel and under braking than my Hoosier car. Just from being able to just from being able to set it up better. And the aero on the 2 cars is very, very similar.
So what was the sweep of that? I assume you're probably using some sort of infrared reader on the tire, face of the tire.
Yep.
Like, what was the sweep? Was it the entire tire? Were you looking at just specific areas?
Yeah, we mounted them custom so that they could see the entire width of the tire and then actually a little bit more, so we knew we could see the whole surface. That data ends up being really, really noisy though. It's not a nice pretty color, so you kind of just ignore a lot of it and look at 3 of the slices and just make sure that you've got the good gradient going across and that you can compare temperatures to lateral G's and see that, hey, up to 85 Celsius, we're building grip, then it falls off a cliff. So we want to make sure that we get the car to enter the lap at like 50, so it finishes at 85. So we're just building grip throughout the whole lap. We don't fall off the cliff.
Super interesting there because, I mean, a lot of guys, right? Something that we see, and me and Kilgore have talked about this a lot with like strategy aspect. So going back to Callan real quick. So what was kind of the strategy given to you by Kevin and the team to say, what's the strategy you're going to go out there and run? Are you going to be, hot lap, cold lap, hot lap? Are you, what's kind of the strategy you're working through?
I mean, for the Super Lap Battle weekend, our strategy is pretty much the same throughout. It was out lap, cold, kind of a cool down, and then pace lap, and then cool down. And then that's usually when we called it. Rarely did we do a faster, I guess, second hot lap. Usually the first hot lap was kind of either maybe my driving ability or is kind of a temperature thing with the car, but usually that was the best timing we would get out of it.
Are you able to actually see the data that Kevin's talking about in real time on your dash, or is that something that's all after?
I can see the pressures, which is very important. Going into 19, I can just double check. I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And yeah, like basically a majority of the sensor temperatures, the coolant temperatures, the boost pressure, like I can see all that. I can switch their dials. The minutia of like the G load and all that stuff, we have to wait till we get out of the car.
Yeah, you don't need to know that anyways
Yeah,
as a driver.
I feel it. I don't have to look
exactly. At that. Like Kevin said, you can feel it in the butt dyno if it's a good lap or bad lap.
Pretty good. Yeah.
I mean,
so what? Go ahead, Jager.
I was gonna say, so I'm interested, I guess. So I'm assuming through your time of driving the Corvette, the Spec Miata, the Lotus, and now driving the Lotus at Super Lap Battle, you've probably driven quite a few different tires. So how did you and the team come to say, hey, we're going to run these P1s? Because I think a lot of people were, myself included, I mean, I'm a big Vitor fan. I will say this. I am. And I haven't even driven on the P1s. I've just driven on some of the other stuff that they put out and am vastly impressed with it. So what was what made you pick the Vitor P1 over any other tire that you could have chose and to throw it on this car?
Well, given that I've never driven the Vitors, I'm going to throw this over to Kevin. I don't know if there's a greener side to the pasture.
You have driven the Vitors.
Oh, really? When?
On the endurance cars.
Oh, yeah. I guess I have.
Let's remember, I guess Limited does have a 60 treadwear. A lot of people like to go to the Supercar 3Rs, I think it is. Mm-hmm. Those are pretty popular. So you're not limited to 200, which the Vitor is, but just with that background, yeah, I guess Kevin, what'd you do? Because I'm running those same tires this year as well. So
basically, with the car being relatively small, we are constrained to the tires that come in like 23.5 to 24-inch outer diameter, which means we can really only run 18s. I'd rather run 17s, but the custom wheel guys can't make 17s. And so we could run AO52s and we could run P1s. And we had AO52s on the car. We got a set of P1s from Dallas to try out. He gave them to us and shipped them to us before our last test day. And as far as I could tell in the data, they were like the same or better everywhere on Coda than the 52s. And we knew that they were going to get better as we ran them through the event, as opposed to the 52s that he'd cycle out. Not like anything like a Hoosier, but just a little bit, right? Whereas the P1s are widely regarded to get better as they get less tread on them. So it made it kind of to make sense to just stick with those for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen a lot of people say the AO52s do taper. I mean, I've even heard people go as far as saying that first lap on the AO52s is the magic lap, and everything after that is going to be subpar. I don't quite believe that. I think that's very much a fallacy there. But I was interested on your tire choice just because I think I vaguely remember hearing you say something about liking the stiffness, the car, essentially liking the stiffness of the sidewalls as well.
Yeah, thanks.
So
yeah, you reminded me of of like a whole like half of the reason. So the car was a little wallowy before on the 52s, and it was for whatever reason the geometry of that car is. And maybe it's because we're trying to run it too low, but we can't quite get enough camber out of the front like we normally can. And the P1s don't need as much front camber, and they have the stiffer sidewall. So it did bring the car to life quite a bit through transitions. Woke the front up quite a bit. I wish we could have done. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if they're anything like I'm running some Vitor Enzos on my Mustang, and let me tell you, like I've ran the CRSs on my Mustang. and those things just roll over like crazy. It's just a street car, so I don't have a ton of camber on it. But putting the Vitors on, I don't see that rollover, and the front end feels much more lively, and I can just do more with the car. So yeah, go ahead.
And so being yeah, like I forgot about that whole series we went through there. Being able to lean on the front end of the car without the car roll decoupling or the front wallowing or anything made it way more drivable. So that was nice.
And what were the tire specs that you were running?
265 3018 or no 55 3018 front and 295
Wow.
3018 rear. Maybe 255 35 front. I forget, but yeah, the 24-ish inch 255 295 setup. And we could have run 305 on the rear. We just didn't have time to test it, and I'm not sure how much it would matter.
It's just wild to me, seeing that you did like a wide body, right, with the fender flares on this, and you're still running 255s, 295s. I mean, normally you think like wide body, oh, you've got big fat tires on there, but that just kind of goes to what you're talking about with the Lotus and its limitations.
Yeah, it's special. So in the problem in the rear with getting more tire in is that they don't make a wheel, they don't make a blank that you can machine with any more positive offset in it than that. And so that was as far the biggest back spacing we could possibly get. And we ran a little spacer, but at some point I'm getting pretty afraid of putting 3,000 pound plus dynamic load through a wheel bearing at 180 miles an hour when the scrub radius is like this far already. Um, those wheel bearings are really good though. Like they literally run those same wheel bearings in LMP cars and stuff with different hubs in them. So it's a fairly reliable setup, but didn't know what we didn't know, so I didn't want to push it too far.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because there's a lot of people who obviously, and myself included, right? So a lot of stuff that we end up doing, we don't really think about those type of things when we're building these cars. We just keep slapping on spacers or putting on different offsets or doing what we can to try to get the biggest, widest, meanest tire that we can possibly get on there. And then we see guys having wheel bearing failures on a constant, and they're like, yeah, just these wheel bearings just keep failing, right? And then it's, well, I wonder why. Like you do have to kind of take a step back and understand that you're having these failures. And a lot of times in time attack, we do build things that are OEM plus ish, right? We're not really going that beyond factor, not into full bore like race car mentality. So there's a lot of guys that end up having like OEM wheel bearings that are inherently too small or not rated for that kind of load and can put themselves in a huge, scary position. So cool of you guys to, keep that concept, in your head to make sure that everything's going to be safe as well as sound and still be able to rip that thing and go as fast as you possibly can. So pretty cool in that regard. So you guys actually put on those 812 wheels too. So I'm just curious, what made you go with 812 wheels?
Like three things. They're local. They scanned the car for us and made the custom wheels, and they're we see them running around Coda on way faster cars all day, every day. So we know that they're going to be safe in this application. So that was kind of the drive there.
A lot of good reasons there, right? Being local, being able to make custom, and then I don't want to say helping you out because I'm pretty sure you paid for these wheels. So helping you out is probably not the right term, but getting to the point of just making sure that they were going to fit perfectly as soon as you slap them on. Yeah. So Callan, I'll have to ask you. So what kind of sponsorship do you guys actually have for this project? How are you guys paying these bills to get this thing, out to the track and doing these things?
We're self-funded for the most part. I mean, a majority of it comes through the necessity to get people to have eyes on the foundation. This car was built to be a big billboard for the Tim McGlow Foundation, raising awareness for cancer research. And
so tell us a lot more and more in depth about this foundation, what it is, where people can find it, where people can donate, all of that.
So the foundation is called Synovial Sarcoma Foundation, and we're specifically raising money for tumor glow, which is a drug that you inject it into yourself before surgery, and the surgeon can see the tumor under UV lighting, so like it all lights up, and so the surgeon's allowed to get precise margins when he's operating. And so, I mean, this is like very revolutionary stuff. I've met the doctor. I've had tumor glow used on me during my second operation, and yeah, we're really trying to get to the next milestone of getting it fully FDA approved, and because right now it's only like for certain cases, and I don't really want to. There's a lot of details on them, and like the not the legality, the approval like necessary to get this over the hump. But this is a car racing podcast.
So, what's the quickest and easiest way for people to be able to help support and try to help that push across that boundary of getting that FDA certification?
Donate on the foundation.
Okay, go to the foundation's
spread the word.
website.
Yeah, donate. Yeah, and
So you guys have an Instagram now. So like the Black Flag Sarcoma Instagram or the Synovial Sarcoma Foundation Instagram both have links to the donation drive on them. And I'm maybe we can put one in the comments when this gets posted or something.
I'm sure you can pull it up on the video too. It's on Black Flag. It all links towards that. We've had some.
You heard it there, guys. We're gonna have a link there for you guys to be able to go on, donate, help get this thing FDA approved, help other people. It's always gonna be a great thing for that's one thing that's great about racing as a whole. I always look at it from a side of we're all family, we're all here to have a good time, and if we can help each and every one of us out and any of our situations, we absolutely should and could. So yeah, I
do want to make a quick correction. I realize it is FDA approved. There's its third trial for people who know about medical stuff. It's a legal drug.
We're all dumb car guys, dude.
Yeah, I don't want to see someone in the comments being like,
hey now, come on.
Funding a drug that's not real. Yeah.
I know some of those words he was throwing out there.
I mean, all I know is, hey, help some guys out. If we can help guys out and it be an experience that we can, let's do it. So that's all that really matters. So, Callan, we've talked a little bit about your interest in time attack kind of came into from Super Lap Battle. So I'll ask the random little question. So what cars, when you came out, what are some things that you've seen in time attack that kind of inspired you, that really said like, this car is so cool, I want to do it, right? Because I always like to understand people's inspirations in time attack to understand like where they're coming from.
Well, definitely Ferris was a big inspiration for us. We kind of like used him as a meter almost of like, okay, we kind of saw what he did with G-Speed and saw G-Speed, am I correct?
Yeah, I think so.
He like mostly independent. He did a little bit of work in their shop. Tim did his wiring. They built the engines before, but now somebody else, late model, builds the engines now, I think, right? Yeah. So it's kind of a bunch of guys these days.
And kind of looking at his, if he could basically get there by himself, he just invested a bunch of time. We surely can get near the ballpark of his success, because, and also a major interest is, I know Coda. We knew we could go perform at Super Lap Battle itself. I've driven plenty of laps at Coda. I live in Austin. Like, this is, if there would be an opportunity to get a good lap anywhere in the world, it would be at Coda.
So how many laps do you think you got around the beast?
It's got to be in the thousands? No, maybe like 500.
So
plenty
of experience. Yeah. I mean, that's really
so
cool though.
I was gonna say, so when you showed up for Super Lap Battle, obviously it's a place you've been to a lot, but then you show up for the event. How much different was it, or was it different at all, or was it just get in the car and go out and execute?
I mean, the event itself was like, it almost put me at like kind of a more focused mindset, I think, where during testing, I'm worried about a bunch of different like things about the car. I have to be a mechanic inside the car, which is kind of a different thing than I usually do when I'm using a racer inside the car. but I'm a mechanic first inside the Lotus, and then, but when I showed up to Super Lap Battle, I knew all I had to do was perform. That was the only thing the car we knew would make it at for the most part, and all I had to do is just lock in for one lap.
That's freaking awesome. I will say this: some of the other drivers that I've talked to, that is part of, I'm going to say, part of their issue. I don't want to say it's an issue, but it is kind of an issue, right? Because when you aren't able to take all of your focus, your 100% focus, and put it directly towards driving and performing, it can hinder your ability to have that. And I say that because, like, you have these guys that show up and they're wrenching on their cars, they're under their cars, they're pulling off their race suits, they're changing a wheel bearing, they're doing this, they're doing that, and then, okay, now I got to go out and drive. And they're doing that for 2 straight days, and they're trying to do this at the extreme limit of what these cars can do. It can take a bigger toll than most of these guys really understand. So when you have a guy like Kevin, who's at this juncture, I'm going to put him into your crew chief type situation, right? So he's getting that car ready, and he's telling you it's good. You can lean the hell on this car. Don't worry, just drive. Because I know for myself as a driver, I had to have that kind of level of trust in my crew chief and in my personnel working on my car. So when I got in the car, I never had that thought of, did we tighten that wheel? Did I do this? Did I do that?
Right.
It was always just get in the car and drive it as hard and as fast as you possibly can. And if you can do that, it shows. And obviously, in this case, it absolutely showed. But you guys able to go out and run what you ran, and obviously, I got the pleasure of dealing with you guys in terms of you guys went out and set a record, and I got to immediately be there and celebrate that record with you guys, which, I'm much appreciative of being able to be there with you guys when you did that. And at the end of the day, no one can ever take that away from you. On your first go at Super Lap Battle,
Right.
you were able to go and break the limited class overall record. And that record wasn't a slouch record. Eric Fleming had set that record previously in that Corvette, and that was a good record. So
Yeah, that record's been there for 2 years, I think, right?
yeah,
And
it'd been there since 23.
Yeah. Ferris had originally said it, and then Eric said it, reset it. Yeah. So I guess take us a little bit through your mindset through the weekend. You guys tested Friday, car's feeling good. You come out Saturday, okay. We've got to set a time on the board. It's going to be hot that weekend, and I guess maybe there's so many things I want to ask here, but let's first do that. But throw in there a little bit about the strategy. Obviously, you're from Austin. COTA. You probably had a pretty good idea of how the track was going to change throughout the course of the day. You've probably been out there when it is 90 degrees. I think that threw a lot of people off at Super Lap Battle because normally they haven't been there when it's that hot. So it was something that a lot of the drivers had not been there. They had not been at COTA when those conditions were present. So you probably had a little bit of an advantage there. So you go out Saturday. You set the record. I don't think it was in your first session, maybe second. I can't remember.
It was first
Was
session.
first session? Okay.
Yeah.
So first session, you go out there, you set the new record, and then you're trying to better it. Obviously Sunday, or obviously later in the day, Saturday, Alan Patton beats it by just a little bit, and so now you've got to go out Sunday, and you've got to push even harder. Obviously, and Kevin can get into this a little bit, but Callan, from your side as the driver, what was your mindset going through that? And again, a little bit in terms of the strategy, knowing that there was going to be more in the car. Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, after Saturday, we quickly learned that the last 2 sessions of the day, it's maybe a 2-second or 2-second lap time fall off. It would be really difficult to set a good lap time. Maybe it's our tire compound. It seemed like we were affected by heat in the lateral G's a bit more than other people. But yeah, going into Saturday, the first session, it was just a banker lap. We had the car turned down to, I think, what was it, 155, right, Kevin?
It was like a 163 on the back straight and
163.
zero boost control, so we were just on boost creep.
Yeah, so we had a pretty hard limiter on the speed limit of the car, and I was very surprised when I saw that lap time when coming across the checkered. I thought that was probably a good lap, maybe a 13, 14. And I saw it was it 11.8, 11.9.
12-1, right? Or 12-0
Oh, 12, oh yeah,
something.
12 flat, yeah,
And
12 flat.
Yeah,
you
12.
got parked by 0.7 seconds in the carousel.
I did get parked in the carousel. I had to lift and I gently tapped the brakes in the carousel because there was an impeding car who we might discuss.
So how quickly did you hit 163 or whatever you said it was down the back straight? Like how quickly did you hit the top speed and then you're just basically just cruising at that point?
It felt like I was going for miles at 160, just putting along, just the car wanting more.
It's before you go over the crest, so you can't even see the brake zone yet. You're on the speed
Oh
limiter.
man.
Yeah, I don't even see the sign yet. Yeah.
It's so for people that don't, for our listeners, maybe you've never driven Coda. The back straight is not straight, obviously, and it actually has quite a bit of elevation. When you turn through turn 11, there's actually quite a bit of downhill as you start on the back straight. So you actually come down, there's a little bit of a dip. You cannot see the braking zone. You can't really see anywhere. So you basically come a little bit of a veer, a little bit of a turn to a right. You come up over a crest, which is where, Kevin, even before that, you've already hit your top speed. And so now you're just cruising. I am wondering, I think that maybe in 2024, last year, just before the F1 race, they resurfaced. I know they've resurfaced that track a bit, but when I was there in 2024, the back straight was actually quite bumpy, and I was wondering, I didn't notice that as much this year. Had they smoothed that out a bit more, or I know the braking zone still looked quite bumpy in terms of where you could see the rubber being laid down.
I know the carousel was resurfaced. It was it all the way to 11. I don't think it was.
So
Was it?
last year they resurfaced the brake zone at turn 12, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And then this year they resurfaced like the carousel to 20-ish, something like that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing about the track is that the bumpiness changes day to day based on how much it's rained because the bumps are the clay swelling differently. So when the
Wow.
clay moisture
Okay.
when the clay moisture matches the day they laid the pavement, the track's a lot smoother than when the moisture is very different than the day they laid the pavement.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
in
that
terms
makes it a
of
very tricky track to
yes,
to get a
yes.
hold of.
Going into turn 1, there's obviously there's usually a bump there at the 150 breaker. Were you braking before that, after that?
I think I was braking right at the 115, I think. If you look at my
Okay.
lap, I think it's right at I just look at there's a very specific oil spill or a lot.
Whatever
Yeah,
works.
right about there. Yeah. There's like I kind of use the LMP card as a reference for that braking.
Sure. Okay.
Held my line.
And then through turn 2, you're flat all the way through turn 2. And then how do you? This was one of the biggest lessons for me when I first went there to Coda, which was don't actually drive the S's as turns, but you really try and straighten
Right.
turn 3 and 4 as much as possible, and almost that's a braking zone for turn 5.
Yeah.
Once I kind of sort of got that mentality into my head, you become much more quicker through the S's. So with the Lotus, how did you treat that section?
For sure. I'd almost kind of driving it straight and then V'ing off most of the corners. It seemed like under rotation, like off acceleration, the car was really happy. It didn't like to turn when I was say like at 20 or like 30% throttle. So it was like 100% get off the accelerator, let it turn back to go to 100%, and then kind of driving like straight line segments throughout the entire section.
Interesting. So I also noticed this going back and watching um the live stream, which was they were much stricter this year about track limits. I mean, they were actually
Oh yeah.
DQing laps where in 2024
It was
on
loose.
Saturday on Saturday, like I thought that they were going to be DQing people. And so I was trying to keep, two wheels or at least one wheel inside the white line. And then I think I think it was actually Eric Fleming's lap and was it Ferris? No, Ferris wasn't there. It was someone else. I can't remember who it was. Oh, it might have been Jackie, but like they were absolutely just on the rumble strips or over. And I was like, okay, clearly they are not really watching this. So I started taking a lot more curbing.
Liberal
Um,
lines.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
liberal lines. But this year, obviously, that was something that makes it even more difficult because it became much stricter in terms of the lines that you had to take. So how did that play into your calculus of driving and making sure that you're not going to DQ a lap? And did you have any laps DQ'd over the weekend?
Surprisingly, I didn't, which is a
Okay.
little bit shocking to me, given I feel like in iRacing, when I do this track, all I do is DQ my laps. And yeah, I did have to change a couple of my exits because usually when I exit these corners, I just drive all the way to basically the grass. For
Sure.
especially on the exit of 11 and the exit of 20, especially. Like I'm just driving towards the wall. But I definitely had to turn a bit more. And I remember watching Eric Fleming for kind of studying up on what he was doing, and I like, wow, he didn't really turn his steering wheel once through the 2, 3, 4 complex. He
Yeah,
just
you're right. You're
it
absolutely
just
right. Yeah.
beelined it right through there.
One of
Yeah.
the things about the Lotus at Coda is actually that like shortcutting the S's isn't faster because it's so stiff because like you have there's no rear sway bar on these cars, and that was one of the things we had meant to engineer but never got around to. And so you have to run 1,100 pound rear springs with a 1.4 motion ratio. And if you try to put both tires on the rumble strips to shortcut it, it's actually slower. So unless you're going to cheat by 10 plus feet, it's faster to keep a tire on the track.
That's interesting because, like you said, I mean, so many other guys. Like you just, I remember watching, like you said, Eric Fleming. There's a bunch of guys that I was watching, and watching them last year. Like Kilgore has mentioned, dude. I was like, because the only time I've ever been on Coda, a buddy of mine let me drive his GT3 during the practice day on Friday, and I got to run like a handful of laps, and so I was treating it like those were corners, and I was treating it like the big bollards were there where you didn't want to hit them because you'd freaking fly off. And so I was treating them with a lot of respect. And then I went and watched some other people's lines, and I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot because these guys were just barreling through this thing full bore. And so it was funny to kind of watch that and look back at that. And then this year they were being, they had Paul Kazima in there, and he was just annihilating people's lap times left and right and DQing them. But like you said, your laps were all solid and just all on pace. So it was really impressive to see your performance out there.
Yeah. So you got to the end of Saturday. Talk us through Sunday in terms of getting up there Sunday morning, trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to turn the car all the way up? How much more do we have? What should we do? Sort of what was the strategy there?
Yeah. So after our record got broken, we like had a big discussion because the risk of the boost creep was definitely there. We're still like the blown gasket is fresh on our memory. I don't know if it was like 2 weeks before we blew a gasket, turning it all the way up, and like the boost creep devoured the car. And but we kind of took the half risk of turning it to, what was it, 170 max, Kevin? Or
Yeah. So we had it set on 170. No, it was set on like 175 or 6. It was like right before it would actually hit the rev limiter. So
right.
we didn't hold back any horsepower that session. We had the boost target set on 16 psi maybe, and then once you're on a straightaway, it creeps up to 26 or so. So it turns out 250 millimeter wastegates is not enough for a pair of G30 770s. I was surprised to learn that, but here we are. And by the time we isolated the problem, it was too late to take the front header off and re-weld it. So we just kind of drove around that a little bit.
And so when you say, because you said it a few times, like you said 160 before, 170, just so that all the viewers and listeners understand, you're talking about the mile per hour that you were trying to hit on the back
Yes,
straightaway.
it's a speed limiter on the back
And so
straight.
we used the speed limiter because it would at 165 it would fairly gently hit the speed limiter, and it was okay to just sit on there for the rest of the time. But because we had never tried the speed limiter on like 177 before, you can see in the video that it hits it. And so what was happening was the car was turning down to 500 Newton meters. So it was going from like 1100 Newton meters to 500 just snap by closing
definitely
the
shocking.
throttle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Callan, what was your experience there when you got to? You're like, yeah, what the?
It felt like I hit the brakes a little bit early, even though I knew I didn't. So luckily I don't think it affected me that much. But I don't think there's any time loss from that. And then we basically did the same. We knew we could go faster. We just didn't know we had no reference lap anymore of what the car could do. We already broke the record that we were trying to break originally, and now we had to go beat our own expectations. So there's definitely a lot of unknowns when I started the lap.
I was gonna say that must have been one of the most difficult aspects to this. Like Kilgore said, you broke the record, so you went, dude, we just went faster than anybody has in this class. Someone else goes a little bit faster and is pushing you to, like, out of curiosity, Kevin, what did you think theoretical best that you could, if everything was perfect, what did you think like the absolute best this car in Callan driving could absolutely do?
So I got like two different answers for that. If you had asked me that question at Christmas time, I would have said like 12.0 or ignoring the problems we were having at the time, like 12.0 or so, right? Like we could go a couple test sessions and like maybe just eke them out. But then by the time we got to the Friday before the event, where we had done 2 test days in a row where we did 15s with like, in the heat without trying kind of thing, I was like, oh, we're going to go 12 like the very first lap we send it. And then there's going to be more. There's going to be more from there. And then, yep, sure enough.
So what did you think, Kevin? You thought 12 pretty easy. So what was your, like, in the back of the head creeping over the top of your skull? What was that number that you were like, oh shit, we can get there?
Like after Sunday or before Sunday?
Before Sunday.
I mean, I actually like, I'm kind of impressed at how well Callan did to get to a 10.3. I didn't think we'd get that low into it. I thought maybe we'd get into the 10s. But he like drove really precisely for the second half of the lap and put together a good one that was like better than any of us expected.
I mean, to me, that's awesome. And I say that because I'm generally this guy, and Kilgore knows it because I'm sitting here egging him on every time he talks about his lap times. And I'm always like a second faster than everybody's expectations because you know how it goes. There's always something there. We always leave something on the table. And so I generally always try to lean toward that fact of there's always something we can do better, whether it be a car setup issue or a driver issue. All of those things compound to lose, those tenths in every little place, leading to bang, a second. So, yeah, just one of those. I was curious, and so it's interesting that sounds like Callan in the car exceeded your expectations pretty heavily. So that's really cool, and it's even cooler thinking now that I assume you guys think you guys have a little bit more pace in that car, where you can come back next year and try to best that again.
Yeah, so we had an engineer that everybody knows, but I won't say who it was because I'm not sure if he was supposed to be sharing data or whatever, to compare our data to an unlimited car. And after we talked about it and stuff, he thought 8.8 and I thought 8.4 were going to be the times for Callan driving the car.
Wow. I mean, I am excited to see you guys come back and do that. That would be absolutely astonishing.
And that's with no aero too, right? So imagine if we had front aero on the car. It literally has a piece of plywood with plastic splitter diffusers.
By the way, I was going to jump into something else, but since you mentioned it, what is up with the front arrow? It's like non-existent in comparison to other cars in the class, other, generally speaking, time attack cars. My thought, and I'm just going to share my thought first because, I'd rather make it sound like I'm dumb before you make me feel dumb. So my thought of it was just like, well, we're going to a track that is high speed, yada, yada, yada. So limiting my drag factors, I use the least amount of aero. And then I was like, well, maybe that's the case or maybe not. So tell us, guys, what's the answer here?
So there's like a bunch of parts to that. One is money. I don't know if you guys know how much getting a custom-made carbon like three-dimensional splitter costs, but
I do. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's
like should I say to
how much you want to pay? I mean, how big you want to go, right? Like
yeah.
It's however much you want to pay.
Like you could buy a bad spec Miata easily for the price of one splitter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so that's part of it. And then the other part of it is we know that the plywood works from all the time on my car. So we've got that template that we've had. So although that is just a piece of wood, it's a engineered piece of wood that was cut it was CNC cut, and it's a laminate product and stuff. And really the splitter is just a device to carry the splitter diffusers. So they're the ones doing all the work. And so having the air get accelerated through the diffusers, going through the wheel well, cooling the tire, going out the vents on the top, you get like I don't know how much downforce we got from that. I know that the car made 550 pounds at 160 miles an hour, and then the splitter was on the ground, so it was making more downforce than 550 pounds. And in my car, that was worth 25 yards of braking at turn 12 to have the diffusers on the car. So it's like, getting the front arrow to actually be in the working window is maybe more important than having really fancy front arrow.
Yeah, that is definitely one of those things. So our friends over at Professionally Awesome Racing would absolutely agree with you that a wood splitter can do the damn job. So, I 100% agree. Wood can make it happen. And you're right. Make it work within your budget. Make it work with how you can use your engineering skills, use your abilities. You don't have to run out and buy that amazing, super expensive carbon splitter that, I was interested because I was watching you guys drag this splitter around this track all over the place. Every time I looked at this car, it was always touching the ground. Whether you're accelerating in a straight line or braking in the brake zones, it seemed like that splitter was dang near touching the ground or scraping at every turn. So obviously that thing is doing a lot of downforce damage and getting the job done. So I'll be interested. Do you guys have any plans to make the aero bigger, gnarlier, wilder?
I think the plan is just make it more effective. Right now, we don't know how, what the efficiency of it could be with like a parachute on the back. We just have, right now, no idea. I don't know what our cost or budget is looking like at the moment, but we definitely know that's one of our major limitations, along with some kind of suspension. I think Kevin mentioned the roll bar, even the possibility of even trying that because it's never been. Has it been done, Kevin?
There was some like Lotus Cup, like stock Elises running the front sway bar on the rear back in the day, and there is a sway bar on the market now, but it's only got like 55 pounds of roll rate or something like that, so it wouldn't have helped us very much. It wasn't worth having the weight on the car and trying to learn something new for that, I didn't think. So we'll be like the first ones putting in a nice adjustable formula. I think we're probably gonna like make a push rod setup and make it using old formula car parts on my car, and then kind of go from there. What we learn and apply that better to your car.
I mean, it's kind of cool that you can kind of test mule it on your car and then push it on to Callan's car. So that's kind of an interesting aspect there. Yeah. Go ahead, there, Kilgore.
You took the words right out of my mouth, which is it's interesting and kind of nice that you've got a test bed car, at least to an extent where you can try some stuff out. I imagine that the cost to run the time attack car is quite a bit higher, and the potential risk,
Yeah.
for taking that out every time is quite a bit higher than Kevin. No offense to your Lotus, I'm not trying to talk it down, but it's obviously clearly worth it to try things out on your Lotus.
Mhm. Yeah, and if I lose a weekend of NASA time trial, it's like whatever, right? But we lose a weekend where we went to Australia because we tried something, then that's a big deal. Um,
So you mentioned Australia, so we'll bring that into the subject fold. So what's the plans for the rest of the year, guys? Where are we going? Where are we going to see you guys next? Because right now you just put yourselves atop the limited class competition base. So, Callan, Kevin, where are we going to see you next?
I mean, we're definitely looking at traveling abroad to either Australia or Japan, because that's like a destination spot. It's like there's a bit higher spectators, and then also it's really cool. So, um, we don't know where our car would fit into the regulations they have set up. So that's going to be definitely a conversation where we think we're kind of in a bit of a gray zone where our car doesn't really like easily slot into, and to be competitive, we don't know if we have that capability. Definitely
yeah,
up for discussion.
it looks like the car that won Open last year does similar lap times to Ferris over there. So I need to understand, like, was Ferris slow? Is that car running a different tire last year than this year? Um, I didn't. It wasn't clear to me if we could be competitive or not. We don't want to go over there and be the slowest car or whatever, right? Um, and
I mean, just the experience alone sometimes is great, but I do understand what you're saying,
mhm.
Kevin. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't want to go over there to lose. That
we don't
sucks.
we don't have to win, but
Yeah.
I don't want to go over there and be the guy doing 312s at Coda, and what is happening? I don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you, one of the things, and this is kind of the genesis and what's really difficult with time attack, right? Because essentially in Japan, as people like Ferris and all Will I Young, they went over to Japan and they ran slicks. And that's in Japan, that was never a thing. They never ran slicks on cars. They always ran treaded tires. So when those guys started doing that, it kind of started making a little bit of a movement there. And I'd be interested to understand from people who are actually in Japan and in the time attack scene what their inputs would be on that situation. But from what I kind of seen is obviously when they go fast, people are going to say, "Hey, that seems like a easy way to go fast." But it's interesting, obviously, because you had someone like Ferris, and it seems like a trend. I'm just going to say it. Will Young and Ferris both did the thing where they went to World Time Attack and then moved that from World over, and they took it to Tsukuba and then went to that right after as a kind of like a world tour style thing. So I'm just going to say, if there's any sponsors out in the world that are looking to jump on the train of FastX and Callan Spence to get on the train of Spence and thems, they are open to opportunities, guys. These guys already have a very, very fast and capable car. This is literally like signing on to a winning lottery ticket and saying, let's go fast. It doesn't seem like a hard sell, but I will say this. So we just have to get someone with the right speed for you guys. But I'd love to see some sponsors get on board with you guys, make it a little bit easier, let you guys travel. I love seeing some of the American teams. Obviously, we've seen Cole and the guys from Life go over there a couple years. We've seen Ferris go over there. We love seeing the competition from America go over there and kind of see what that really brings and what it actually looks like. I'd love to see you guys go over there and compete in like the open class to kind of get an idea of where you guys would slot in. And I'll also say this. I would love to see you guys at Buttonwillow. And I know everyone's gonna laugh in the comments like Buttonwillow. No one cares about Buttonwillow. It's time attack for America, right? Buttonwillow is the track where we go. We have 20 years of experience, and I would absolutely love to see this car time attack there with Callan at the wheel to really see where he stacks up in that 20 years of time attack lore. I mean, there's always a chance that you can come out and just completely dominate in a class like limited there. I think the Professionally Awesome Racing, their limited class Evo still holds the record from like 2013 or some silliness. It's some like wild old record or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I could be, but it's a really old record that is needing to be badly broken. So I really would love to see that.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good pitch.
2015.
2015. So 10 years.
Jeff Westphal, and the Professional Awesome Evo, a 142.6.
142.6.
Wow.
It's a definitively fast time, and that's where I'd love to see guys like you guys come out and attempt to go after that record, because it is, again, you're talking about 20 years of experience, and that record has now held for 10 of those years. But obviously, if you end up going to World Time Attack, that's going to be very, very difficult. So you guys have a desire to go to World Time Attack and a desire to go to Japan, to Tsukuba, I assume. Any other desires, any other things you guys are really looking to do, trying to branch out while you're still here in the U.S.?
Well, what I would like to do, and I've been trying to sell them on this, is to go run a whole season of Grid Life where we run that car in the Time Attack, and either they or I run my car in GLGT, and we have them like wrapped to the same and everything. I thought that'd be a really neat operation.
That's a really cool way to do it. I mean, my thing is always like this. If you guys can set it up where you guys have a helping hand to one another, obviously, you're running similar cars, you're kind of building off of each other's cars to build the other. I think that'd be pretty wickedly awesome. Now, I will say that puts a lot of stress on your guys' team. Does your team have that kind of depth, Kevin?
You mean me and Tan?
Yeah, that's I mean, that's a lot of work, man, to go wheel to wheel and putting down one of the most powerful and, fastest Lotuses by far in Time Attack.
So Callan's car actually, so we tightened a bolt the whole weekend. That's all we did.
Well, that's just cheating. See?
Well, I also filled the gas.
Yeah, we put gas in it. We drained the oil from the catch can. We put that much oil back into it, and we tightened one bolt. That was it. So yeah, that car is easy to run. I don't know what people are whining about.
Plenty of time to work on a GLGT race car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that car breaks. There's no question about that. It's got like 1/20th of the budget, and it has like a known problem that basically every 40 minutes we got to repack the inner left side CV joint because the angle's too big. So.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I'm really excited to have you guys on here. I think you guys have been awesome. I'm really excited to see that you guys came out and delivered. And I will say this again. I'll say it again. Kevin had some claims early on that were very boisterous and rowdy, and you guys came and backed it up. So big shout out to you guys for having the balls to come out here and do the damn thing. So I am super, super excited to have you guys out there. Really excited to have you guys on the show to share the insights of the car. I know a lot of people instantly took notice of you guys in the car. So really, really excited to have you guys out there at Sakota Super Lab Battle. Man, any other questions you got there, Kilgore? Any other things you got?
I guess to Callan, obviously we talked with what do you guys want to do with the car going forward, but I guess from your perspective, like you're a student, we didn't really talk about we didn't talk about that, but a lot of your time gets taken up with school stuff. What are you looking to do, I guess, ultimately in the future in terms of, your driving career, if we want to call it that? I mean, maybe that's something you really want to get into. Maybe you just keep it as a hobby. What are you looking to do?
Definitely siding more with the hobby. I know where I stack up in my overall skill, and it would take more time that I'd like to devote to be at least a decent professional driver. But this car was mainly an opportunity for me to work on basically a big group project. I did all the design, like the livery. I did a bunch of the branding. I got to work with a very big media corporation, NGI Media, to do a bunch of the foundation rebranding, and just kind of this car's a little bit. I worked on the cage. I learned how to weld. It's like this car's a little bit of my portfolio as a student.
cool.
Like this is
Open to maybe people reaching out looking for
absolutely,
livery
yeah.
designs. Would you
I hope so.
be interested in that?
Mark made a comment to another competitor about having a bare, boring car.
Yes, yes. We regularly rip people for boring cars. You could at least put a livery on there, make it look a little bit better.
You know, we've talked about this numerous times, but there's only so many silver Supras I can watch go down the track. Okay, like at least put a freaking stripe on it or something.
It's engineers. They don't really care how things look, I guess.
Everyone else does, baby. Everything else does. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to see the cars. They are part of what our imagination looks at these cars and goes, this is what's going to attract me to the car. This is what's going to get me enthusiastic about these cars. So when I see, like, one of my favorite shots is of your car coming barreling down the front straightaway, and it's a situation where you're able to see this car in its entirety coming down the front straight. You can just see the car barreling down at you. Super awesome to see. You get to just invoke everything. And then when you're getting out of the car, like you're seeing here on the screen, like you're matching the car, everything is just together, right? And so when I see that, it instantly, from a spectator perspective, your team looks that much more professional. Everything looks that much more professional. The car looks dialed. So to me, all of that really matters. And that's always been my thing. I think that that's something in Time Attack that I'm going to say this, there's only one thing that drifting and Time Attack have in common, and that is simply that we want to look good while we're doing it. Because other than that, drifting is kind of just drifting. And yeah.
All right. I know we talked a little bit about this, but Kevin, we'll jump to you first. How can people follow you or keep up with you and FastX? Maybe throw out a couple ways that they can keep up with what you have going on.
Yeah, so we post the most on Instagram, so it's FastX_Autosport. We have a YouTube channel, the same name. You could email me, sales@fas-tx.com.
What else what all do you do besides build killer Lotuses? Do you do anything else?
Yeah, so we do like Lotus streetcar work. We do custom car builds like this. We do like race support or track support. So we have like a Ferrari Challenge car that lives with us that we take out to the Dakota whenever the owner wants to go do HPDs or whatever kind of events in it. And then custom wiring harnesses, Motec installs, tuning, like all of we didn't make the cage in this car, but we did everything else in house, and we could have made the cage. I made the cage in my car, but I'm an okay welder, and Callan wanted it to look pretty.
Good for you, Callan. Good for you.
I feel like the cage is kind of the underrated, and like I should have painted it a brighter color. Arthur Warchan worked on it. He's a great artist. He's slow, but he's a great artist, and like he really does. I think we didn't have any templates. It was one of the only FIA certified cages in like America that we could find, like, for a Lotus.
Nice.
That's awesome. And Callan, what about yourself? How can people keep up with you?
Black Flag Sarcoma is probably our biggest avenue on Instagram. A lot of things are just joint posted with FastX. All of our race cars are supported through FastX. But Black Flag Sarcoma, that's how you're going to find the Snowville Sarcoma Foundation, and how you're going to find a little bit more about my story and what it means to be a cancer survivor and such.
That's awesome. Well, and we will definitely link these things in the description and in comments when we post stuff up, which we will be posting up clips and other announcements on our Instagram. You can follow us, the podcast, at Perfect Lap Podcast. You can check out the website at perfectlappodcast.com. feel free to email the show. We always love hearing from you guys. If you guys have any suggestions for topics that you want to hear us discuss, you can email the show at maximumattack@perfeclappodcast.com. We generally release episodes every other Thursday. They're coming at you a little bit quicker these days, just because we have so much content that we're getting out with you guys. We had so many events going on at once, which was a good thing and a bad thing, but episodes should come out every other Thursday. Obviously, you can find those episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Kevin, Callan, we appreciate you guys coming on here. We know that Super Lap Battle ultimately did not end up where you wanted. You were on the second step, regardless of the fact that you guys held the record or broke the record and held the record twice. Ultimately, at the end of the weekend, you didn't hold on to it for the first position, but that's still incredibly impressive, especially for your first year at Super Lap Battle. Jager and I have always said when we talk about how difficult it is for people when they first get into the sport to really grasp and get a handle on how to be fast. But you guys obviously came straight out of the garage and were able to do it. So congrats to you guys. We look forward to having you on the podcast after Button Willow or World Time Attack Challenge, whichever one of those comes
Heck yeah.
first. You guys better save us and let us be the exclusive podcast for your tales and tribulations from those two events. So again, thank you guys for coming on. As always, thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode with Kevin and Callan. For all you time attackers out there, keep pushing, go fast, take chances. We'll see you in the next one.